Hello folks and welcome to my website. Hope you're all doing very well. I won't take up too much of your time, but otherwise just want to jump on and thank you for your support and your time, and otherwise show you the things that I've been working on and obviously have found out on my journey so far, which has been nothing short of incredible, life-changing, very testing at times, but very fruitful, especially in this more advanced stage of my learning, with the things that I'm working on with the advanced Treasury pack, liquidating the estate, setting up the whole infrastructure in order for us to be able to capture our unlimited exemption, unlimited credits, draw up our own drafts, bills, notes, and checks and bonds, and work with the Treasury at an international level on the creditor's side of the ledger, in order to offset debt, make secured transactions, access a unified tax credit, and basically draft up unlimited credit, and then learn how to protect that through the right entities such as the LLCs, the UBOTs, which are the unincorporated business organization trusts, which are common or private trusts, and then the non-profit charitable foundations with the 501c3s, and then the 501c1as, which are the churches, which end up becoming your very own treasury and bank, which is basically exactly the same as what these folks who are currently in power, with the Vatican. That's why all roads lead back to Rome, as we'll prove in this presentation, that they end up becoming the most powerful entity on this planet because they're following exactly the same process, being able to operate in the public and keep things protected and locked up in the private and administer in both realms their agendas, and every step of the way protect their wealth and assets and knowledge going forward, which is something we're going to have to do in acquiring the knowledge necessary in order to make that transition from a debtor-slave mindset education, which unfortunately is the public school system, the indoctrination camps, in order to bridge that gap to now become an international creditor where you've got full knowledge of banking, finance, law, securities, which are all governed by the UCC and Unicentrale Convention, and then obviously tax codes and trust law, and everything in between. All right, so you're going to become proficient. This is what this whole program is designed to do in order to make that transfer from a debtor-slave mindset into an international creditor where you become responsible, accountable. There's no more pointing fingers. If you want to know who the problem is, look in the mirror, and come of age, become the age of majority, come back to life and separate yourself amongst them, as the Bible says. Kill off your straw man, Cain killing Abel, become like Jesus, being able to walk on water, which is basically being able to master the maritime admiralty system that we're in, and take back control of the mark of the beast that's been assigned to you from birth, which is your straw man, your all capitalized legal fiction, which is only ink on paper, which is a security, which is a warehouse receipt, a bill of lading that's otherwise been issued to you when you were birthed into this world from your mother's birth canal, where the dock was there to receive you like any ship, coming into the ship estate, from your mothership into the ship estate. Your parents register you. When you register something, everything goes to the crown, the title, and the rights. Because the man has been brainwashed, he is meant to know the law in order to administer the estate and protect the family's wealth and assets. Your baby, you are an asset to the corporation, because what they do is then pledge you as collateral for all the debts under this bankruptcy when they took away our ability to pay with money backed by gold and silver, which is why you see inflation go out of control. Every year they've got to raise the debt ceiling, and all of this public spending, all of this inflation, stealth tax, eroding away your wealth, and everything that's going on with this huge divide of rich and poor, and the inequality that this system is breeding is just getting more and more contrived and more contrasted and more obvious. And it's all as a result of this ignorance, our lack of education. This is what this program is designed to do, is to dispel the ignorance through educating you folks and learning how to take back control, enforce, govern, and administer and issue your own securities and protect your own estate. And this is where it gets into the process of liquidating your estate of Patrick Devine, Peter Joseph Polinsky, Gene Keating, and this is what we're working on, tying all this together that can otherwise prove where a lot of people falling short on this journey, right? So they can come out from amongst them, like the Bible talks about, as I mentioned before, so you're not considered a wall of the state, incompetent, innumerate. You can come of age, all right, come back to life, which is what otherwise they have you down as. You're born dead, under the system. When they issue that birth registration, right? And then that all goes to the Department of Commerce, and then they securitize it. That ends up going to the DTCC in New York. No matter where you're on this planet, it's all under the same system, okay? If your nation is otherwise in debt, you can go hop on National Debt Calculator wherever you are, and you'll see that if you're in debt, then you're under the same system, okay? Unless your money is backed by something of substance, you are under the same fiat, colorable law, fiction system of this monopoly board game that we're on, which is pledging every single product coming into this planet, which is you, and pledging that sweat equity, that future lifetime of tax payments and labor in order to provide the interest repayments on the debt. Okay, and all that is administered, governed by the DTCC in New York, which is why New York is New Babylon in the Bible. Okay, if you look at Revelations 9:11 as well, that's why there's a lot of stuff going on there around 9/11, so that's all linked to Abaddon, the king of hell. Okay, so this is very much a spiritual journey. I know everyone's at different levels of their awakening, but this process, as much as it will benefit you materially in this realm, is of a very significant spiritual importance for you to be able to get this process done too, just talked about in the Bible. Okay, if Cain killing Abel's, you killing your straw man, God telling the Israelites to go and make brick without straw, go and do business without your straw man, okay, and all these things, Jesus walking on water, being able to master the Amity maritime jurisdiction that we're in. Okay, and we're about to head into a new age of Aquarius, which is fixed air, which is trust law. Okay, so you need to be on your toes, be willing to put in the effort in order to adapt yourself, all right? Okay, so, because all these world leaders are slowly forcing themselves more and more, turning the screw more and more in order to take more and more of your rights away, okay, more and more of your title, privileges, benefits, and freedoms, okay, which is basically not good, all right? So you need to wakey, come back to life, learn, put in the hard effort, invest in yourself, okay, and consciously invest in others on this journey too. Come and join the community of other like-minded sovereigns, which is plenty of us, you know, helping to be the change you wish to see, and get yourself in a position where you can become an international creditor and then use the ability to draw up unlimited credit to fund life-changing, community-driven projects that are going to benefit the people, okay, and put the money and the wealth back to the people, all right? So going back to New York, DTCC, World Trade Center, United Nations, you've got Bloomberg there as well, you've got the Lucis Trust, which is Lucifer. These guys worship Lucifer. That's why they have all the Freemason, secret society networks. Okay, everyone comes in at a different level, which as you rise up, the ranks and the degrees, you get more notice as to who you're really secretly worshiping and what this whole program's about. We've come here to dismantle that, bring the power back to the people. Okay, and this process is going to help you definitely get that done. All right, but I just want to make you aware because it's so important. Okay, well, what's happening on this planet at the moment? All right, you've got Washington, D.C. is otherwise the other city, which is linked to what is referred to in the Bible and the Revelations with how the Great Whore of Babylon split in two. Okay, so you've got New York is otherwise like the financial, international capital of the world. Okay, because everyone's securities, everyone's birth certificates get assigned a QSIP, ISIN, and SINS number by the DTCC, which is the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, which is a huge private trust that's otherwise owned by the Jesuits and the Black Pope in the Vatican. You've got UNIDROIT Convention, okay, which is the International Institution for the Unification of Private Law that otherwise governs the copyright to the UCC, which is administered worldwide under every country that has signed up to the UNIDROIT statutes, which you can see here, there's 65 states, okay, which is pretty much most of the Commonwealth and the wealthiest nations of the world, okay, who are covertly administering this Amity maritime jurisdiction within their court system ever since they took away ability to pay in money backed by gold and silver. Okay, so in 1666, they set up the Foreign Grantor Trust, declared us all dead after 7 years, which means that all the estate escetes, all the property and the res escetes to the state, which means your children, okay? And then obviously they are meant to be trustees, and us having that birth certificate is evidence of a beneficiary position, okay? And under articles, UCC Articles 5 and 7, documents of title, letters of credit, it goes into how you can see it's otherwise considered, can be considered a bit of lading or warehouse receipt, okay? And it should otherwise be a trust certificate unit or beneficial interest certificate, okay? But because they declare you dead after 7 years, obviously there can be no distributions to a dead person, okay, because that beneficiary has died, so it's unable to receive any benefits from the state. But otherwise what happens is you just get the bare minimum of the wealth, the exponential wealth that's otherwise they've been earning in your name ever since they set up the securities which are traded on the markets. Like I said before, assigned a SINs, ISIN and QSIP number, and then put into these mutual funds, which are accruing annuities to take life insurance policies out on that, which again creates another huge fund, which accrues annuities, pays out dividends for all these investors in these funds, the fund managers, the hedge funds, hedge fund owners, and all the people in this kind of elite clique of the financial world, where they know exactly what is going on. But because ignorance of the law is no excuse, this is how these scumbags operate. Okay, so the only remedy to all of this is just becoming educated. Okay, so there's many moving parts to this process, which is why I've done the best I can with this curriculum in order to show you guys from A to Z how to, as quickly as possible. Everyone comes in at different levels of understanding, but I would recommend giving yourself probably a year, at least a year, to work through the program and have from that point forwards a solid base understanding of what is going on and how to start administering your affairs and getting some packs together, like the advanced Treasury pack, in order to start liquidating your estate. Okay, so like I said before, it's otherwise what's been left behind by some beautiful gentlemen called Patrick Devine, Peter Joseph Linsky, and Gene Keating, in order to pave the way for those on the path to do the same. Okay, but it's very difficult with what has been left over because there's information all over the place, there's lectures all over the place, hard to get hold of the templates. And so this is why I found my sole calling in order to be able to provide everyone the process and all the templates and information and materials that they can access in one place. Okay, and try and weed out all that is unnecessary, refine it, and just keep it as succinct as possible and walk people from A to Z in order to get this done. Okay, so that's been my calling and why I've done what I've done, because I've had some great success in this, and I've kind of set my life up ever since 2019 and coming into this legal fiction knowledge of the straw man, prior to which I was educated for a degree in economics. Okay, so I had a really good idea as to the monetary side of things and what's going on there with the fiat fiction, fractional reserve banking system. It wasn't until 2019 when I came across Mary Elizabeth Croft's PDF of how I clobbered every cash confiscatory agency known to man, that I became aware of the legal traps. And I was like, oh my God, that's the missing piece of the puzzle. Bang. But the monetary system, the colorable currency, and the colorable law that's governing the colorable contracts, okay, they were all being sucked into as surety, pulled underwater into the realm of the dead, where these dead corpses are, dead corporations speak. And in order to speak to them, you must have your own dead corporate agent, okay, which is your straw man, it's your trademark, it's the mark of the beast. Okay, if you look at otherwise, everything that's otherwise issued to you, bank cards, driver's license, passports, you'll see your name in all capital letters. If you go down to the graveyard, on the tombstones, all capital letters. Okay, it's Capitis Dimissia Maxima. As we know, it represents the maximum loss of rights and title because you are dead. That's what they declare you as. And it's all about not foregoing that entity, okay, which you can use to your benefit in order to operate in commerce, but being in control of it as a secured party and creditor, entitlement holder, lien creditor, executor, trustee, through these different entities that we set up, okay, like the estate and the trust, foreign grantor trust, the UBOT, and then the 508c1a's ministries going forward. In other words, UCC finance as well, which help, with under the security agreement, which is the most important document in this process in order to formulate the separation of the debtor and the creditor, in order for you to then be able to speak to these other dead corpses on paper, which is just ink on paper, okay, and take back control of that trademark, that trade name, which is the mark of the beast, because without it, you can't buy or sell or even travel. So you try and travel without your passport, you try and open a bank account and actually conduct commerce and transact without having that legal fiction or capitalized straw man, mark of the beast. And even if you look at Visa, okay, VI is 6, S and A in ancient Babylon and Sumerian is also 6. So you've got 666 there hidden. There's a lot of 666 symbolism everywhere we look within the system, even Google, CERN, which is where the World Wide Web came from, www. In Hebrew is 666. So no matter which way you dissect this and how you look at this, it all comes back to the spiritual origin of what was going on. And this is the remedy. And it's talked about in the Bible, like I said before, coming out amongst them. And this is why this process is so important, not only physically and materially, in order for you to master the two-dimensional realm of paper contracts and procedures with these so-called papal bull sanctums, right, that they issued back in the Vatican under this triple crown of Baal worshipping these horned gods, these Canaanites and Sodomites. Okay, they're all cannibals, they're all Satanists, Luciferians. Okay, in order to take back control, dispel all of these spells they've been casting on you for millennia, epigenetically. Okay, and even in this realm with the paper bull, okay, the paper, making you think that you are literally that entity on paper. All right, and you've got to service all this debt. Debt is sin. Debt is also phonetically similar to death. Okay, and come back to life and be like Christ and accepting the charge, accepting the Christ. Okay, so whatever you're presented with, you can then do your banker's acceptance once everything is established, send it off to the Treasury as your jewelry in order to set off the books and bring everything back to zero. Because what is zero? Eternity, infinite. And this is why people, when they know how to do this, the secure transactions and balancing the books, this is where you become unlimited, okay? In order to become unlimited in this system, where we're dealing with debt notes and debt paper, which is a complete negative, we have to bring everything back to zero, okay? And this is what we're getting into the more advanced phases of being able to do and learn when setting everything up, okay? But there's a lot that you need to set up first. There's a lot you need to learn, okay? Which is what this course is designed to do, okay? So we have Sedicovy Act 1666, there's the proof. For want of proof of life after, beyond the seas after 7 years, okay, you'll be considered dead, and that's how they entrap us in order to act as surety for the system and not receive any benefits, which otherwise we should do, with them acting as trustee. But because they're incompetent as well in their trustee role, but they otherwise don't have to do anything, because if their beneficiaries are dead, then fair enough, everything escapes to the state, okay, under the bona vacantia division in the Treasury, look it up, okay? And otherwise the Vatican does all roads lead back to Rome, because Unidroit governs the copyright of UCC, and because we have now a system of securities that have replaced substance as collateral for debt due to them taking away our ability to pay in money backed by substance such as gold and silver. This is the law, and the seas that we're swimming in is the UCC, because the UCC and the Unicentrale Convention governs these securities. And okay, I've got a perfect case to prove this, okay, which is right here in my attempt in insuring my car off the back of Mary Elizabeth Croft, reading her PDF and what she did in Canada, gave me inspiration to try this out, because I knew, based on my economic education background, what was going on in this monetary system, and I can kind of work out that, yes, okay, I can see how this can work. Okay, so I'm just going to show you this to prove that securities have now replaced substance as collateral for debt, and we're not dealing with any money of any substance whatsoever. It's just paper and contracts, okay, under this colorable fiction system. So you can see here, I've sent in a notice to try and insure my car, right? So I'll read it out to you. As secured party creditor and sovereign, I hereby issue a surety bond to the value of £1 million sterling as security to settle any claim of liability in the event of an incident requiring compensation from another living soul. Please find the surety bond and terms and conditions attached for your record and safekeeping. Okay, due to the very fact that securities have now replaced substance as collateral for debt due to the bankruptcy of the United Kingdom Corporation to the IMF, including all subsidiaries and government in their private corporate capacity, and that there is no money in circulation of any value in which to pay, only debt, and debt is created on paper, therefore all debt can be discharged and issued on paper, I exercise my right and limited exemption to use this negotiable instrument to ensure that myself, secured party to my straw man, and to any and all personal vehicles owned by myself involved in any incident is hereby covered by this bond to the value of £1 million sterling. Okay, you agree that a copy of the bond is proof of insurance unless explicitly stated otherwise. Silence is acquiescence, yours sincerely. Okay, so I sent that off with a copy of this bond, as you can see here, bond order. I mean, I was wet behind the ears when I sent this in, and you can see it's just all made up. I didn't even register it properly. Okay, didn't even sign the stickers, didn't use the stamps. I just put in, as well as the two witnesses, two variations of my name, which under law are legal fictions, ens legis persons. Okay, in other words, signed as principal of my seal, embossed. And I sent that in, waited 30 days, phoned up my car insurance, cancelled it, and kept this, a copy of this in my glove box. Okay, so I was driving around, testing this out to see whether it worked. If I got pulled over, I was hoping I was going to get pulled over to see what was going to happen. Okay, obviously, like I said, I'm wet behind the ears. I should have notified, the police station, the traffic police, obviously notified the Department of Transport, okay, in order to get this appeased. And otherwise, what did happen after about a few months, I got pulled, okay, with the cameras in the cop car showing that I didn't have any insurance. So he issued a halt, but I said, look, officer, I've got a surety bond, so I am insured. And what's interesting, he took out a book, right, and showed that under the laws in their codes, that if there is a bond deposited by about at least £500,000 with the courts, then that can be considered insurance, okay, in this instance. But because I had proof of my papers, he couldn't do anything on the spot. We otherwise had a good conversation. I said, look, I've got this with the Department of Transport. I've not heard back, which gave them, ample enough time to rebut my claim. Okay, and this is now locked in law as contract. This is fact in law that I can rely upon because they have not rebutted it. Okay, silence is acquiescence, gave them 30 days to say otherwise, and they didn't. Okay, with registered post. So if they sent anything to you that isn't otherwise tracked and registered, that they can prove in court that you received their rebuttal or a claim, then they've said nothing. It's just all a dog and pony show, puffs of smoke, putting rabbits out of a hat. And this is the key. And coming back to the basics of this movement is that everything is contract. And you can literally send in, if they do not rebut, your terms and conditions of how you wish to be treated and how you wish to go about your business, especially when it comes to insuring yourself, okay, and creating your own securities, which anything with your name, date, signature, and amount on is money in this debt-based backward system. It's a security. Okay, so anyway, I got issued a halt. He couldn't do anything, couldn't issue me a fine. So I went into the police station to explain. Obviously, it was, they were scratching their heads thinking, how do I prove that you got insured? Because they're trying to find the actual insurance company. I said, look, it's not with the conventional insurance company, it's with the Department of Transport. They otherwise said, leave it with us. Okay, and I was able to walk out there scot-free. Anyway, 2 weeks passed and I received this in the mail, where they obviously just decided to enforce, okay, a fine and points on my license. And I thought, okay, well, that's right, it's just another test. I'm obviously not dealing with people who know what I'm doing, because they're hopefully replying to this. As you can see here, you can stop, pause and read it. This is all recorded, it's all proof, okay? I obviously responded, told them the explanation of what's going on, said that I did have a surety bond issued to the Department of Transport, provided a copy of that to them. And this is obviously when you start dealing with the postal road mechanics of registered post, it ends up in the hands of those individuals, i.e. the solicitors, who know exactly what I'm doing. And I got a letter of apology back, basically cancelling the charge. Okay, so the offence has been reviewed and I write to confirm that the fixed penalty noted above has been cancelled. Boom. So there you go. So what does that prove? That securities have now replaced substance as collateral for debt due to the bankruptcy of the United Kingdom Corporation. Okay, so I'm just going to show you. And this is the problem with people on this planet. They don't think for themselves anymore. They don't ask questions, right? Their education comes from Netflix and YouTube, which is mostly full of shit. Okay, so you can see here, the national UK debt calculator grows at £5,170 per second. Now you've got to think, okay, well, if our governments are in debt, who do they owe that money to? People don't think anymore. So who's the creditor? We know the government's the debtor, and all this debt is going up. And we know how they're creating this debt and able to actually take out more debt, issue more bonds to the central bank, which is owned privately, Bank of England. Okay, it's a cunning name, but otherwise, again, it'll be another UBOT, private trust. Okay, which is basically on sovereign land. It's the City of London. It's their own nation state. Just like the DTCT, it's a private trust. The Vatican and the Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, if you listen to Gene Keating, the tax plot maps. So they have everything that's divided into postcodes, right? But they also have that with tax plots. Okay, and you look at where the Capitol Dome is located, apparently on the congressional record, it's 666. It's right in our faces, people. So you've got to look, who do we owe money to? Who does the bankrupt government, who's just, again, another private corporation, owe money to? This proves it, the IMF. The IMF is the International Monetary Fund, where it's in conjunction with the World Bank, issuing these loans to these nations that are set up to default. And once you default, you can demand your pound of flesh as a creditor and twist their arm, in other words, take control. And that's exactly what's going on. So the families, the individuals behind all this are administering this. Okay, and this is otherwise outlined in the Committee of 300 document. okay, which you can see here is the Philippines, renewing the bankruptcy of the Philippines. And so where is the Surety Trust located? 31 US Code, subsection 1321, trust funds, A2, Philippine Special Fund, Internal Revenue. And then you have A62, Puerto Rico Special Fund, Internal Revenue. This is why when we send our packs in, we're dealing with Puerto Rico, Department of Treasury. Okay, as you can see here, there's the first-hand evidence, the Committee of 300. And you've got the Queen's signature there. And this is basically all the bank accounts of what these folks have been doing for thousands of years, siphoning the sweat equity of the people. Some of these bank accounts have got like 100 zeros on the end of it. It's a number so high, they probably haven't even got a word for it. Okay, and you'll see some of these names. And that's where the Switzerland comes in. So this is where a lot of the depositories and the banks which hold all of the wealth that's otherwise siphoned through this method, here it is, of capturing sweat equity from the public with this bankruptcy and then converting it, transferring it into the private treasury, the private banks, which is the Vatican, which is the banks in Switzerland. And you can see here, the Central Bank of Switzerland, worth 800, just count the amount of zeros, I don't know how many's there, it's a lot. Okay, and you've got all these names, King David, Anthony, Santiago Martin, King Solomon. These are just bank accounts. These are trusts and bank accounts. Alpha Omega account, that's linked to the Alpha Omega black hole of our Milky Way center. Okay, if you look at Ashayana Dean's work, all of this Alpha Omega code, the kind of from ashes to ashes, dust to dust, this is all part of the Anu Elohim, the fallen Anu Elohim, Anunnaki, Draco mentality of these archons and these entities that reside, the demonic, because they've got to feed off other life forces in order to perpetuate their immortality, because they're cut off from the eternal natural mathematics of energy from source. And Ashayana Dean goes all into this. This is why, everything that we're doing, this is all part of the spiritual battle that we're in. And so you can see all these bank accounts, spiritual wonder boy. It's in the name of some of these people that are obviously worshipped in the Bible, which are just allegories and parables for these entities that have existed for a very long time, because a corporation, a trust, can, when renewed, exist in perpetuity. And this is what these families have been doing under these names. Wonder Boy King David. You know what I mean? This is all coming to an end. But it can only come to an end within your life where you're basically not pledged to the clock, okay, which is Saturn. Saturn governs money, banking, finance, and law, and time. And what governs all these securities and maturity of bonds? Time. What is calendar? The etymology of calendar. The reckoning. Let's have a look at this. So when you come out of this system, you're literally coming out from being pledged to the clock, to be pledged to the sine wave, which is Saturn. It's time. Everything down here decays because of time, which is imbued on the natural eternal nature of creation. Death is a science. Sine wave is sin. It's the temporal realm. Things rust and rot down here because it's subject to time. Okay, in order to become a master of time, you must be a creditor in this system. You must learn how to administer your own securities and let time work for you. Let money work for you, not work for it. Don't be subject to it. Okay, so calendar, you can see here, it's a year divided systematically into days and months. Table showing divisions of the year. Okay, and then here, account book. Calendar, the calends, the first day of the Roman month, when debts fell due and accounts were reckoned. This is from Calais, to announce solemnly, call out. So this is what it's saying. It's the reckoning for the reckoning of debts. What is debt? Death, sin. Your time's up. When the Grim Reaper calls, bang. You haven't got any more sweat equity that can be pledged because they've been draining you. They've been sucking the life force out of you with this Babylonian banking system, which has been conjured up by the archons, demonic spirits, I guarantee you. Look at Pierce Back's research. All of this I share on my website under resources. Some brilliant lectures and books coming out from these folks. Santos Bonacci. Pierce Back shows you how the government were founded by the Shaitani, which are these demonic, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, whatever you want to call them, anti-Christic forces, in order to help perpetuate this fucking prison planet that we're in. So you've got to get real with yourself and know that what you're doing is so important in order to, again, remove that yoke of being pledged as just stock, common stock, preferred stock, in this commercial system of Babylonian whoring yourself out for wages and coming back to life and just kicking that fucking commerce out of your temple. Jesus kicking the Jews out of the temple, because unfortunately a lot of the families, a lot of these Jews, they worship Saturn. They're Saturn worshippers. That's why they wear all black. That's why in the courts you see the judge wear all black. That's why when he walks in, you're all going to rise. It's raising you from the dead. You capsized. That's what churches are. If you go inside a church and you look up, it looks like you're in a capsized ship. That's why they say it's in the navel. That's where people sit in the navel, which is the belly of the ship. That's where you come from, the navel. So your umbilical cord's attached. It's all water. It's all maritime admiralty jurisdiction. You've got to learn how to walk on water, not let them sink your ship. Stay above water. Or if you do go in, use your submarine. Know how to play in the realm of the private and the public. This is why David Miller said, bless his soul, learn to live and sleep in the world of fiction and learn to live and sleep in the world of fact. That's just having knowledge of basically the game that we're playing, which also goes back to this. It's very simple. It's a very, very simple process of understanding how to operate within the realm of the public and the private. Okay, the LLCs you set up are in the realm of the public. You have that owned by U-Bolt, which is a private trust that can exist in the private to private, can contract private to private, private to public, and public to public. Okay, then you have all of the profits and income that otherwise can't be deducted from the LLC is distributed to the U-Bot as its owner in dividend payouts. And then that income for the U-Bot can be distributed to its beneficiaries, who after this process can also help set up to be tax exempt with some of the claimants we're making when we're not pledged as a so-called citizen, a so-called straw man debtor, okay, who is subject to tax. And otherwise 100% of its income can also be donated to a 501c3. And the beauty of a 501c3, that on the public side is a non-profit charity that can issue tax deductible donations. So 100% of the profits of income coming from the U-Bot can then be deposited, donated into a 501c3 and have tax deductible donations given. Then the 501c3 can then donate into a 508c1 up to 100% of its income, which can exist privately without any tax reporting whatsoever. And so this ends up becoming a treasury. These two end up becoming a treasury and a bank for you to go forth and do investments and help fund works on the planet for whatever it is you want to specialize in order to help bring heaven on earth. And this is what these guys have been doing. And the Vatican sits right here as a bank, the biggest bank, the Vatican Treasury. So every single person, so the IMF is otherwise a fiscal agent for the Crown, and the Crown is otherwise a fiscal agent, Chambers of the Exchequer of the Treasury for the Vatican Treasury, which is just a bank. That's all it is. That's all the courts are. The foreign vessels in dry dock, and they're banks. So when you set up this process, right, so this is what we're getting into, it's what we're working on. When you're coming out amongst them, okay, is you're setting up this whole process of liquidating your estate. You've got to kill off your straw man, become executor of that entity, and then use that as a pass-through going forward from a 9(8) foreign grantor trust where you're acting as trustee. Okay, so this is what we're working on. This is what we're doing, and this is what we just sent in. Okay, and these are the kind of things you need in order to perpetuate and start administering your estate where people are falling short on this journey. Okay, because you need all of this. You need your UCC1 finance system, your security agreement. That is the contract that is pledging your straw man as a debtor to you as a secured party. And separating that yoke, kicking that debtor straw man out of your temple. But you're controlling it now as the master puppet on monopoly ball game of commerce. Okay, then you assign the bonds. You need your indemnity bond indemnifies your vessel straw man in order to operate amongst the high seas of this commercial system under maritime admiralty law. You have your set-off bond, which basically charges up with your international bill of exchange, your UCC contract trust, which is then giving you the ability for you to be able to draw from, to discharge debts and make your secured transactions via the Treasury in Puerto Rico, and also your domestic Treasury, wherever you are in the world. This process can be done because, like I said before, with the Committee of 300 document you've seen, even under the codes, okay, Title 31 USC 1321 subsection A62, Puerto Rico is a special fund. Okay, and this is what's getting sent in. All of this, your IRS Form 56, binding them as fiduciaries, as co-trustees. You're executor to the estate, and they're coming in as fiduciary to help you administer and liquidate the estate as if you're going through probate. Okay, you've got the Bill of Exchange cover letter, you've got the IRS Form 1040 ES, prepayment of taxes under the tax code that's necessary in order to prepay any taxes that come due when it comes to you closing the estate and liquidating all the assets in your straw man name, which they have the master file on. Okay, which you may receive a Treasury check when this process is done. Like I said, I'm going through this process at the moment. I'm just finalizing my pack. I've sent it off. You have it bound in a nice and smart, legally bound book. And you have all the documents there with all the proper assigning of stamps. Okay, under the Postal Road Mechanics, the UPU, thanks to Dave Warren Miller, Russell J. Gold, Mark Kishon Christopher, appeasing all the processes and procedures of governing these document contract vessels, because these are otherwise considered vessels floating in a sea of space. And these four corners are where you reserve all your rights, because they're your right angles. That's why when you square the circle, if you add up the degrees of a square, it comes to 360 degrees. It's exactly the same as the circle. This is where the ring is. This is where the arena is, where the feudal system's played out. The dueling fields of old, where we used to do battle, is now on paper. Debtor, creditor, claimant, defendant. Right? This is all that's going on. So you need to learn how to master all of this, because this is literally what's going to set you free within this system. You've got to master the two-dimensional realm of paper contracts and procedures before you can free yourself in the third-dimensional realm in order to gain even more greater access into the higher dimensions with the Akashic records, the astral planes, projecting, gaining access and connecting to your higher self. Okay, so this is so very important. So this is the fundamental basis of what you need in order to start being able to discharge your debt, binding the Treasury as your fiduciary, where you can execute any bills of presentment that's made to you. In other words, make your secure transactions when you know how to go through that procedure, okay, which you need to follow some steps in order to get them to act as jewelry under banking and securities law in order to discharge and offset that debt for you and balance the accounts, bring it back to zero, okay? So you send all this in off the back of this, you're making some claimants of tax-exempt foreign status, declaration of executor, notice of appointment of the office of executor, notice of absolute forgiveness, claimant of proof of life, also chucked in some more stuff, Data Protection Act. Okay, and you've got all of this is otherwise shared within the course, right, under the Advanced Treasury Pack module, which is quite comprehensive. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's gonna take a while for people to learn about these things and become competent in learning how to administer it and enforce it going forwards. Okay, but this is the basis. People aren't getting anywhere because they're not acting as international creditors. They're not setting themselves up and laying that foundation of being able to access their wealth, because they're still belligerent, they're still arguing. The conditional acceptance of value is good, but you're still operating in the land of the debtors. An international creditor will accept the charge no matter what is brought against the straw man, whether it's a criminal charge, civil charge, whatever it is. You can accept it, do your banker's acceptance and know how to offset that debt, because you're unlimited. Under this system, we are unlimited because they had to compensate us in order, because when they took away our ability to pay in gold and silver, they had to compensate us and provide us remedy. And that is otherwise codified with the Treasury being able to discharge our debt dollar for dollar. And again, everything goes back. The gatekeepers to accessing your wealth is in America, because that's where you have that World Bank, the IMF, the DTCC, okay, the United Nations, all these international creditor agencies acting on behalf of these entities and families that, you know, exist beyond them in the Vatican. This is where they exist in America. And you can see here, this is otherwise one of the gatekeepers in order to gain access to where your SETI KV trust is, which is right here. You see the Queen has got a signature to the certificate of live birth in order to help renew the bankruptcy, which happens every 70 years with these accounts. And it's all esoteric. Well, even these numbers, 777, Philippines. And there's Queen Elizabeth, chairman of the Committee of 300. So anyone who thinks this is all conspiracy, you know, you gotta take a rain, check yourself, basically. Wake up. These are all the signatories. And it's a revolving door. They all change through all these agencies. It's a revolving door politics from the corporate world and the political world, even though they're both cut from the same cloth of this fiat debt-based currency system. It's just the illusion of the government being for the people. They're not. They're privately owned. They're in bankruptcy. They have King Anthony St. Martin. All the signatories there back in 2007, a year before the financial crisis. So this is what we're dispelling, right? And this is why it's so important to come back to life. Stop being pledged by the clock. Okay, and giving your life force away to Satan, and these Satanists, these Jews, right? So this is why I've created this program, which is so very important. Okay, and it's going to help you not only come back to life, but just learn how to administer your estate, get these processes set up so you can start accessing your unified tax credits as well, which is what we're working on. It's what I mean. Over the next 6 months, for me recording this video, I'm going to be entering into the kingdom. And whether I'm going to be public or not, I'm not too sure. I still want to set things up. So I should be able to give back through my ministries, okay, that I want to set up, in order to access and capture the unlimited credit that I can draw up, knowing these procedures as an international creditor, right? And put that money to good use for the benefit of mankind, for humankind, but can only help those who help themselves, right? That's why this course and what is needed in order to achieve sovereignty is going to require a huge amount of energy and focus and discipline in order to see a program through to the end. And these are the only people that I want to work with, which is why I've set the price at what it is for this course, because it's going to separate those individuals that are still stuck in the debtor mindset of, oh, that's too pricey or that's too expensive, as compared to someone who's got that spark of the living creditor in them waiting to be awakened, right? That could be like, okay, how can I afford this? Okay, yeah, no, I can see this is a great investment for me. I'm going to take this seriously. Value and exchange and consideration, knowing the laws of contracting, even though this money is debased. Okay, it's still backed by our very life force. Okay, so we must treat it with respect. At the end of the day, money as an object thinks nothing of you. It's just a tool that's being used to, unfortunately, manipulate a lot of individuals and whole economies. However, it's like any tool, it can be used to build wonderful things or be used to destroy. Okay, so it's up to the individual, and this is why I only want to work with people who are serious, who have that creditor mindset going forward of becoming a future leader, where you can become basically an angel investor. They can set up these ministries and capture all the unlimited credits that you'll be able to create and live that good life, help your family out first and foremost, and then from there going forward, tap into that abundance and start letting that cup overflow and let it spill into your community, let it spill into those who are really in need, right? And this is what I'm all about, and this is why it's exciting, because knowledge is power, and having this knowledge is going to help unlock and dispel otherwise what's been kept hidden by these elite scumbags for so long. And they've been doing it for so long that they become so detached that they're like xenophobic. They're like a subspecies. And they look down on humanity and think that they're above everyone else when they're not. Nowhere near it. They're a subspecies. They should be below us. And that's what they took a pledge of. Obviously, these officers in government, they are there to serve the people, but we must send in the papers and follow the necessary procedures in order to get that done, to unlock that process. Right, and this is where this comes in. With the whole estate, liquidating your estate. This is the first step. The second step is obviously setting up your foreign grantor trust. From there, you start working with the DTC, SEC, and with the Treasury direct accounts, right? And you use all these entities in order to manage your estate, asset protection, estate planning. And then we get into, as I'll show you, people have access to all of the documents, all of the files, all of everything that I've managed to successfully prove that works, like the bond example. And you have here the 98 Foreign Grantor Trust setup, where we're dealing with $1 billion bonds, investment bonds, ordering these folks to deposit on our behalf and act as co-trustees to manage that account with the Treasury direct account. It's simple. It's got to follow the steps. That's all it takes, a bit of focus and discipline and time to grow into it. Okay, and learn all that is necessary in order to come back to life and administer your estate, become a sui juris, competent, okay, in order to handle your affairs. And this is otherwise what is on the course. Okay, I know this is jumping around a bit, but this is the website. When you come in sovereignty and law, you can sign on. So this is one of the previous presentations that I did that kind of breaks down the more rudimentary elements of this and showing you the landmark. So as soon as you come into this realm, they take your foot, the sole of your foot, which is linked to your soul, okay, and put that on paper. So your first imprint from your foot is taken on this two-dimensional paper fiction realm, okay, and that's your landmark. So they claim that, the land. This is why it comes into the Triple Crown of Baal. They have the three titles of what they're claiming with their papal bull sanctums of claiming rights and title over your soul, which is how they capture it, play on words, obviously, the land and your body. So this is claiming your soul and your body. And then what they're doing with the lands, with the registries, they're doing that too, of the earth. And they're basically governing everything that comes in and out of it because they control all the gates. They used to. That's changing. And the gates is otherwise what controls the flows of consciousness and energy that comes in to realms. And this is why there's a lot of starseeds here at the moment, indigos. Okay, beings from higher places to help dismantle this spell. That's all it is. Black magic. That's why they love black nobility, black. That's why they wear black. So all goes back to Saturn. Okay, so you otherwise have there's resources here on the page. That's my sovereignty and law page, obviously, which is what this is all about. But there's some great resources here that I share, the UCC connection, okay, so you can see how all roads lead back to Rome with this system is governed by the Vatican. You've got the ABCs, ABCs of the UCC, Article 1 through to 9, except Article 2, which I haven't done yet, which again is another important one, but mostly Articles 3, 4, 7, 8, and 9, they're the key to know. Once you master those, you've got pretty much a really good idea as to how these securities and banking works within the system. You've got Santos Bonacci, again, is another one. This is how it came into all this stuff beforehand. He's the one that revealed to me about how the Vatican owns your soul for all these practices. Okay, it's all coming to an end. You can dispel all this work on paper. They've enslaved you and floated you as dead coffins on paper. You can come back to life on paper. It's as simple as that. That is the arena, like I said before. That is the ring. Okay, ding, 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 blue corner, red corner, defendant, claimant, creditor, debtor, live person, dead person. This is how you come back to life. It's through that arena. This is the feudal system. The feudal arena, the battleground is the two-dimensional paper realm of fiction contracts and ink on paper and personas. Okay, and you have David Miller obviously cracked the code with the language, which again is a really key element to learn with this, which will help dispel some of the blocks that might be in your subconscious, working with your conscious, with the spell work used in the words, okay, with the poison prefixes, taking you, which basically poison the root words, okay, and then obviously the suffixes, which is taking you away from now time, which is the only time that exists, not the past, not the future, it's now time, in the present, okay, and then there's obviously more supplementary material there that you can look through, the 10 Maxims of Law, which has all come from the Bible too. Bible's a science and law book. Then you've got some good presentations here on economics. It's probably the best documentary I've seen on the current banking system that I highly recommend watching. And then obviously psychology, because unfortunately there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in people because they have been programmed. It's like they've got a lot of amyloid plaque in their brain. And it does require a lot of energy because our brains are so elastic in order to form those new neural pathways under the law of facilitation, right? In order to actually conjure up the energy and the motivation to want to change and to empty your cup of all the shit that you've been taught and then re-educate yourself. And this is what this is all about. You've got to empty your cup of all the shit of what you've been told and then re-educate, reframe your minds, rewire your mind to start thinking now like a creditor, like someone who can accept the charge, someone who's in abundance, someone who's unlimited. Because they've been programming us all our life, even for our families, right? That money doesn't grow on trees, scarcity. This is how these guys thrive, off of scarcity economics. And it's all fiction, it's all contrived, it's all an illusion, the scarcity. Because they lock away all the free energy, which is why they have all these industrial complexes in order to control the resources. The resources are the energy, And if they got you convinced that you're operating in a scarce world, a finite world, cut away from source and eternity, then you're so much more easily controlled because you are in a fear-based paradigm. Fear is the currency of control, right? So you must snap out of that illusion and realize that you are eternal, you are infinite, you have unlimited abilities to access and create anything, especially when it comes to wealth and credit and accessing your limited exemption. Okay, so this is so important. Obviously, as part of the sovereignty, health is such an integral part too. You know, making sure you're treating your temple with respect. It is the house of God, the temple that was built without hammer or nail, right? And that's why stress, portrait of a killer. Unfortunately, the system subjects a lot of people to stress because you're pledged to the clock, right? This is Saturn's kingdom. Satan's the prince of this world. Look at John Bunyan's book on the Pilgrim's Progress, and there's a little good YouTube video on that depicts this. It's all like this is almost like a simulation that there is a rite of passage in order to get out of this system that is being coded in the Bible, coded in history, hidden in movies, music, okay, and books, in order to show us the way, the straight and narrow path, come back to life. You know, all these parables, these allegories that can otherwise be decoded to show you the way, how to come back. All right, and obviously some of the esoteric teachings here as well, highly recommend. This is all part of the process, coming back to life. Good presentation I did on the Corona period. Okay, Pierce are back, proving how our governments were founded by the Shaitani. You got some of the history here as well, which is just incredible what this woman has been able to bring back on the planet ever since the fall of Atlantis, or ever since JC was back 2,000 years ago. So, you know, there's a huge shift happening on this planet, right? And the more people that jump on board this movement and take back control, it's just going to ripple through the collective consciousness and help seed the truth back on the planet, because that's what they killed. That's the whole symbology behind crucifying Jesus on the cross, which is what they worship and get people to worship, is basically the death of truth on the cross. Jesus said, I'm the truth, I'm the light, I'm the way. Jesus represented the truth. His vibration, his whole being was aligned with eternal life source, which is truth. Truth is the ultimate and highest religion. There's nothing higher than truth. Truth is just all-knowing, all-loving, right? And that's otherwise what they got us worshipping, is the crucifixion, which is a load of fucking bullshit. And it all goes back to pagan worship, a sacrifice in the firstborn. Okay, if you look at Neil Gaiman's work of American Gods, it's all part of this pagan worshipping ritual sacrifice system that they got set up that feeds false gods. Okay, so they've got everyone worshipping a lie, because that's what Lucifer has done in this realm, is literally inverted everything. When you're born down here, you're considered dead. That's what the esoteric teachings teach. When you're born here, you're dead. When you're dead, you're born again. And anyone who's had out-of-body experiences and be able to access the astrals can testify to that fact, and I can. I've had near-death experiences, been out of my body multiple times. I've seen demons, I've expelled demons in the name of Jesus Christ. I've met entities up in the astrals. I'm tapped into my higher self. I know what's going on. Very much part of this hidden war that has been happening and being moved and working with higher beings, like many others are, with the grids here on the earth as well, helping to control the gates, the flows of consciousness, battling demonic forces. Seen Satan twice, very real. In the other realms, overseeing this one in higher dimensions. King of the astrals, not anymore. Right, it's all coming to an end. We're in a battle. So anyway, when you log in, guys, when you come and sign on, I do offer a holistic lifestyle course as well, which again is very empowering. You basically come in, right, this is it. You've got all the curriculum down here on the left. You've got the introduction, economic backdrop, and live life claim. Okay, just starting off with the basics and just work through the whole program, okay, systematically. And then when it comes to actually you sitting down to do all your documents and putting a pack together, highly recommend just focusing your time and effort and resources on the Advanced Treasury Pack redemption process. Okay, which you guys on my YouTube channel otherwise have access free to the introduction video, which kind of helps break down this path, okay, that we're on in order to, access your redemption, true freedom, unlike all these other pipe dreams that have been sold to people out there. Trust me, I've been on it. I've been on this journey for 4 years now, and I've invested so much money in other people's courses. Yes, they gave me parts of the truth, but it wasn't the whole picture There's so many pieces missing, right? This is otherwise through the likes of PJP, Patrick Devine and Gene Keating. You do not have to deter from these three teachers. Everyone else, otherwise, isn't teaching the UCC, okay, and otherwise sending in these bonds and the securities to replace substances to collateral for debt, etc., are basically gatekeepers, okay, or controlling agents, or then they themselves are kind of stuck in a bit of a rut in regards to not realizing that they haven't found the solution yet, okay, because it is a rite of passage and you will be tested. Heaven has a strong bidder. How badly do you want to enter out of the realm of the dead, which are just the 9 to 5ers? You know, the 9 to 5ers are the zombie apocalypse. That's what's going on outside. They're mocking us. And if you listen, problem is, as soon as you come into this information, you will start seeing the Agent Smiths and the Matrix that comes through the subconscious of those you think you love, that you can call your friends and family. Without a shadow of a doubt, I've seen and witnessed this firsthand, and I'm so shocked because people haven't claimed back their higher selves and done the shadow work. There's a lot of entities operating in the shadow, which is your subconscious, that they come through at times, and it is like Agent Smith. And they just want nothing to do with what you're talking about. As soon as any bit of truth is mentioned, it's like it irritates their demons, irritates those entities that are dwellers of the shadow in their subconscious. And they just get up and leave. They either get up and leave, we have this like fluoride stare, or they just automatically go into this kind of press enter response of denial. Cognitive dissonance, Dunning-Kruger effect, Stockholm syndrome. That's why, you know, under resources, psychology, it's so important to dissect all these subjects in order to realize the game that you're in, this controlled fucking prison planet of a matrix we are actually in, that we're helping to break free from, okay? Breaking the rings of Saturn, the one ring that rules them all, with the moon as well. That's, trust me. Some people aren't ready for the truth, right? There's different levels to it, but I've been graduated, self-initiated into learning the truth. Okay, the highest truth, exactly what's been going on. Otherwise, Ashiana Dean can help decipher, and it's very real. Hell, the black hole pit, subtime distortion matrices, death sciences, okay, false New Age teachings as well. There's a lot of that going around at the moment, the false Luciferian light. All these signs, symbols, geometries, techniques, okay, running reversals in your DNA template, morphogenetic field, in your shields. Okay, so it's very real what's going on, but this will at least help you on paper be able to take back your estate. Okay, your state, your e-state is your energy. So your energy can't be siphoned anymore, and you can protect your energy, which is yours. It's rightfully yours. It can't be pledged as fucking interest repayments on debt, which is drawn on an account of zero balance from the central bankers. It's just all Babylonian money magic that is used to control Babylonian slave driving techniques. Goes back to ancient Babylon, even before then. We won't be the only planet that this is happening on. Okay, so you've got the templates, bonds, UCC filings, goes through all of what I showed you in the contents list, and how to control your assets on the UCC 3 addendums with your security agreement Schedule A. Okay, and then we obviously get into the tax codes and accounting for all estates and trusts, okay, which is basically starting to pave the way of understanding the recoupment process of accessing unified tax credits, okay, dealing with the IRS, which is your friend at the end of the day, because in order for you to be able to access zero in the account, you must report that which has already been prepaid and that you've paid for twice. And that's where Gene Keating's teachings of the original issue discount comes in. Okay, so it's, again, just changing your mindset from using these agencies for our benefit, because that's what they're there for. But in order to unlock that, you must have things set up and come in at the international level as an international creditor, having your whole estate set up, you've 98 foreign grantor trust, everything collapsed. Okay, then you coming in with the right knowledge, with the right paperwork, and knowing the right procedures in order to get things done. And they will respect you a hell of a lot more, guarantee that. I've witnessed this. And I've even traveled as a diplomat in the airports under the coronavirus lockdowns, and they respect that. And they otherwise ask if you want to be, you know, escorted to the airplane and stuff like this. And this is where the IDs come in. Okay, going back. This is how to set up your 98 foreign grantor trust. So at this time we're recording this video, you know, we're still working on this process. We're going to liquidate the estate. Next step is then making our secure transactions. We're going to go out and buy a Rolls Royce, going to buy a house, show you how this works, create the negative checks. That's what PJP left behind. Okay, and then from there, it's just a matter of administering the estate every year, accessing unified tax credits, which is, as of 2023, around 12.9 million on the gift side, and then the generation skip and transfer side, the transfer side, the estate side, is again another 12.9 million. So you can access double that. Okay, and that's basically your fee as trustee to administer your estate. And then from there, you can issue your own investment bonds, securities, you're dealing with the DTC, get your FINS number, your cage codes. Okay, you'll be an international creditor, an international private banker, dealing with the Treasury directly. Your bank is the Treasury through the postal road mechanics, the postal road network. Not many people are teaching this out there in the sovereignty community. Everyone's getting trapped in the conditional acceptance or other methods of the W4 and try to do the 1099 process, but not even realizing that first you must have an indemnity bond. You must indemnify your strawman vessel in order to be able to operate, in commerce, because under Admiralty maritime law, it's all insurance. That's why they underwrite everything, every application, every loan application you have, mortgage agreement, it's all underwritten. That's why you have the underwriters, the insurance, everything is graded because it's all debt. That's why you have the credit agencies, Moody's, Standard & Poor's. Everything has to be underwritten and rated because they're all debtors. These are all debt instruments. Okay, but you must be indemnified. Then you have your set-off bond, the international bill of exchange. That charges up your account, which is with the Treasury, which once it's charged up, you get the Treasury green card receipt back to say, hey, look, okay, we've got your bonds. They're now cured. You can now draw from us with any presentments and bills that you might have or secured transactions you want to make. Happy days. And then the 9(8) Foreign Grantor Trust, you're basically having that estate held in the Foreign Grantor Trust. You're acting as trustee for the estate, the decadent estate that you're collapsing, which is basically collapsing your SSN, your ITIN if you're international, which is all linked to your social security number equivalent, which is linked to your SETI KB trust. Okay, it's going to be acting as a pass-through account where you're executor beneficiary for, mainly executor, 9(8) Foreign Grantor. So you're going to use that when doing your recoupments and accessing the account with the Treasury that you filed with the bonds in order to charge up UCC contract trust account. The 9(8) Foreign Grantor Trust, you as trustee, is going to be the bank that receives the funds that you can draw from that entity, that pass-through entity. Okay, in other words, used to deal with the DTC, the Treasury, okay, and issuing securities going forwards, investment securities, etc. Okay, and then unlocking, doing your recoupments, and using that entity to then protect your assets and your wealth going forwards and act as another pass-through account in order to siphon into tax-exempt organizations and inevitably completely in the private, which is a 508c1a, which can basically be created without any registration to the state and doesn't have any tax reporting requirements and can also exist and keep its tax-exempt status whilst being protected under the freedom of speech. Okay, the 501c3s unfortunately cannot make any political donations and they're otherwise restricted with their freedom of speech and making such opinions about the political arena as well, which is why the state have done a great job to muzzle the church or these independent churches that want to try and otherwise come up and speak the truth about what's really going on in the world today, which ultimately we know the Vatican, the biggest church of all, which is controlling all of these state-run public organizations anyway. Okay, the corrupt church, but the 508c1a is the ultimate freedom tool in order to siphon from the public all the way into the private and keep everything kosher, where you don't have any tax reporting requirements and you can otherwise exist and do whatever it is on your mission statement with what you want to bring to the world to benefit humanity and actually talk the truth without being impinged or having your tax exempt status taken from you. Okay, so very important. So very important. So like I said, the course, it's got a lot of moving parts to it. I might come back through and refine the process a little bit in regards to trimming the fat with what I feel like is not really necessary, but I've gone through it before and I believe it does build on itself, and all of these elements are must-knows for you going through this journey of becoming an international creditor, okay, and dispelling your debtor mindset and coming out from amongst them. Okay, so you got the introduction, very basic, introduce you to the postal road mechanics, the live life claim, some of the quantum grammar language, and some of the economic backdrop, okay, which is what we covered in this presentation. You've got the quantum grammar and language fraud, which again is dissecting the language from David Warren Miller's findings, which is brilliant. Okay, I wouldn't advise using it though, because unfortunately, what is going on is otherwise just banking, okay, credits and debits, just balancing the books. Unfortunately, I've tried this process out with the language. It can store them, but inevitably won't get you the results you need, which is just them wanting to balance the books and do the accounting, okay, because they're all acting as trustees. So this bankruptcy on behalf of the international creditors, that is what is being administered. And because they're operating in bankruptcy and they're insolvent, they have to do every trick in the book in order to try and get as much sweat equity from the people as they possibly can, which inevitably ends up in these funds, which just stay on embezzlement, okay, to these judges and these folks who know what they are doing in order to, siphon the wealth that is otherwise coming from you, your signature, your sign of nature on these instruments, which they end up turning into a security, which end up turning into credits, which they can access. And I think every judge, as soon as they earn about $30 million from embezzling people's estates, okay, basically retire. Okay, so it is good to know, because there's a lot of word games that are played in the courts and on paper. And we just show you how we can otherwise apply this when speaking in plain, simple English in the now time jurisdiction, that we must put that on a document like you would an actual vessel with the flags you're flying of communication to state your intent and what it is you are all about. What is the substance on that vessel? Okay, what is your intent? What are you doing? What is your commercial game? Okay, and this otherwise just helps with all these little procedures in order to be seen as someone who knows exactly what you're doing within this network of, all these CFOs and the people high up who know exactly what game is being played, like all these Freemasons, okay? So they'll know that you'll be respected as a result of knowing all this stuff. And so seals, shields, emblems, and crests is another key one, okay, in order to actually create your own flag for your vessel, for your state, all right, which is going to hold some of your virtues and values. So I'll walk you through how to do that, which is a must in order to put on your documents, okay, and otherwise use going forward. That's a representation of your family, of what you mean, your business. Okay, then we have Bills of Exchange Act 1882, a good introduction to some of the laws that otherwise have been used back in the Bill of Exchange Act, that otherwise the UCC is kind of being modeled off of, okay, or yeah, the UCC has used the Bill of Exchange, which is a model of, and there's now the modern equivalent, okay, that's kind of being administered worldwide, which is why you have the UNIJOY, International Unification of Private Law, because all these folks who are otherwise members to the UNIJOY Convention and statute, otherwise thinking in the future under the New World Order to actually pull everyone under the UCC overtly, okay, even though covertly it is secretly being administered in their courts, in their system, in their bankrupt state, but it's disguised as statutory jurisdiction, okay? But this otherwise proves that everyone is otherwise paying a membership fee, is accessing the right to use the copyright of the UCC, which is otherwise held at the Vatican. The UNIJOY is 100 yards down from the Holy See, so it just goes to prove all roads lead back to Rome, okay? So that's important, okay, in order to do in a stand, just to, whet the appetite before you get into the UCC articles 1 through 9. Then you've got how to write your letters. Again, it's just rudimentary procedures involved, and obviously some of the more backdrop in history as to what's going on, just to help, saturate and marinate, what the hell is going on and how we can obviously come out from amongst them. We have obviously all the maxims of law, which is very, very important too, that you can quote, that I've taken out of the Black's Law 11th edition. All the most pertinent ones I thought were necessary. Then you've got status correction again, which is again a good introduction into why it's so important, okay, to correct your status. And we've got some different methods that I share, okay, but ultimately, like I said before, you want to be going through the Advanced Status Correction Treasury Pack when you are ready to sit down and get all your papers handled, and you've gone through and learned about all the other facets, which I highly recommend going through first before you then sit down, okay, and get things done, because you might want to get your emblems and seals done first, your live life claim done through the registered postal road mechanics, and then your certificate of the identity in its standing and breaking down the UPU orders under that module, okay, and then obviously start focusing on getting things set up with your status correction advanced treasury pack. Then you can focus on discharging your debt with actually seeing results, okay, once everything is cured, charged up, and you being able to now use the treasury to discharge your debt for any presentment that is made against you, any bill that is made against you, and anything that you've otherwise paid, you can then access the right of recoupment, because everything is already prepaid, and that's on the Gene Keating, that's where the 1099 OID comes in. But you won't be able to do any of these processes unless you actually liquidate the estate, come out from amongst them, have your bonds sent in, and operate from these entities that we talked about before, the 984 grantor trust, etc. Okay. So this is very interesting. Again, like I said, I highly recommend going through all this, but when you want to come and sit down, do your papers, focus on the Advanced Treasury Pack. You've got how to discharge your debts, fines, and taxes. I've gone through and showed you in the early stage of my journey, the conditional acceptance for value, okay, which is a very good method of otherwise proving that this system only exists in contract, law, and consent. And when you start questioning their bill and their presentment, because most often these debt notes or these so-called presentments of so-called debt that you owe, okay, which is often from a loan application that you've assigned your signature to, a mortgage, whatever it is, that you've actually created that credit in the first place off the back of your life force and your ability to draw up unlimited credit. Okay, but because you haven't got the knowledge of governing and securing those securities through the 1099A process, the UCC1 public registry, they come in and claim it as abandoned and take it for their benefit and then subrogate you as debtor who has to pay. Okay, and so this otherwise shows how you can stall them and push them into a corner of them showing that there is actually no evidence of any lawful debt that you owe. Okay, but they otherwise just end up selling it off to someone else at a discount, which means that it's already been paid at a discount. Okay, so the original debt obligation, even though it's the credit that you created in the first place, that created the obligation in the first place, right? They end up selling it to someone else in the markets. Okay, and it's that debt collection agency or that investor that ends up receiving the repayments plus the interest, which are like paid out in dividends, okay, semi-annually or quarterly, in order for, you know, them to basically come after you for the repayments, but you are the one that has created that debt obligation in the first place. Okay, and so you can otherwise prove that it's already been paid off and that you were the creator of the funds in the first place. And you can ask all these questions to basically put them into a position where the emperor's got no clothes on, you call their bluff, and there's nothing they can do, but they otherwise rely on, a lot of the time, threat, coercion, and duress, okay, which is what I expose under this module, which has really, really been a very testing but valuable learning experience for me, having bailiffs turn up at my door and actually realizing that they lie a lot of the time, saying they got a CCJ on me, you know, counter court judgment. They don't. They're just trying to get me to, they're trying to draw out consent for me to react in order to try and bite the hook, for me to agree some kind of, you know, repayment terms. Otherwise they're going to come and take away my property, etc. But I stood on my square, stood on the documents that I sent out to them to give them time to prove. If they didn't, which they didn't, then that is stood in law. They are then in default, okay? But I obviously lack the knowledge then of being able to progress that certificate of default, get a certificate of default, which is what guys are doing now, in order to then issue that at the courts, where you can either get a warrant, okay, in order to seize property, go through the courts that way, or you can actually have a right of self-help where you can do this privately, and or go to a broker and just simply sell that security or get it securitized, turn that note into a security, and get a payout at a discount, and then it's just floated on the markets. Okay, then all these other debt collection agencies, other investors will invest in it and then try and go after the person who is obligated to pay that amount that was due to you, okay, based on their default, all right? Because your time is money at the end of the day, and if they're kicking you around, you know, causing you fuss without being able to prove a valid claim, then they're violating your rights and you can charge them for your time. And that's as simple as that. And that's otherwise we're going to get into in the later stages of this more advanced process of having all the steps in order to get them into default, in other words, do what they do to us. In other words, work with the courts, work with the brokers in order to get payouts, okay, and actually enforce these defaults that we've otherwise proven they've been dishonorable. So we've got this next one is a really good module as well, okay, which basically highlights what I talked about with my car insurance bond, the insurance C-Pass bonds, passports, and strawman account, tapping into a little bit, looking up your QSIPs, okay. I think some of the websites changed now, so it's a bit difficult to get your hands on the QSIPs, but it's not necessary per se. We get into more information in this in the Advanced Treasury Pack, okay, but when you unlock your ability to draw up unlimited credit, you don't really need to worry about the so-called securities that are already traded in your name. So unfortunately, a lot of people who do come to liquidate that, the fund managers and the investors, the beneficiaries to those funds, end up kicking up a bit of a fuss if you're not careful, and can end up going after you in a lawsuit if you do not know what you're doing. Okay, and I've heard some horror stories, I mean, I can't verify, of people going through this process of liquidating the estate, getting hold of their securities, Okay, and then obviously going through the process of working with the transfer agent to transfer it back into your name, recoup those securities, and then liquidate it, sell it. Okay, so you get obviously a payout. This is where people become billionaires overnight. Unfortunately, end up going through a lawsuit from the investors of those funds, and these are big fish. Okay, and they've got the resources, the money, and the lawyers who know all the tricks and traps to try and test you to see whether you know what you're doing after getting this done, and people end up in prison. Okay, but I think you can only end up in prison with this process once you've got everything set up for your indemnity bond, etc., if you do not know what you're doing. Okay, so that's so important to every step of the way in this process. Only send out and do what you know for certain. You know what that is actually saying and doing for you. Okay, so it's like flogging a dead horse a lot of the time in this course, but it is repetition is key in learning, 7 times exposure. Okay, in order to enforce these principles into people on this journey. So very, very important. Okay, so another important module also showing you how you can make joinder to your passport, your driver's license, anything otherwise the state issues, so you can help remove that surety ship to your straw man, otherwise show that you're coming in as principal executor trustee, okay, who is in their living capacity rather than this just ink on paper or capitalized fiction, which does work. That's how the Freemasons and federal judges travel as well in the airports. I've noticed, you do get treated differently. Certificate of the identity, again, is another big one. We actually prove that I managed to send myself as a diplomat to America during the time of them requiring people to be proof of vaccination, etc., under the COVID-19 pandemic and testing. So managed to prove that that works under a little declaration that I sent to the Vatican, again, notifying these folks that this is how I wish to be identified. Once I got my IDs made up, which are quite smart, which you probably see around the website, but just hold them up there. Get them apostille too, so that means that they're legalized on the international level, okay, which is an important process. You can also get your Aquarian Ministry IDs done, which are quite smart as well. Aquarian Ministry, that's the name of my ministry, but 508c1a ministry done, okay, but otherwise show you guys how you can actually get these made up yourself. If not, you can pay me a fee and I can make them up for you, okay, and obviously, yeah, have the testimony of how I managed to get myself sent as a diplomat, avoiding all these regulations, and apostille your ID, show you how to do that, and also how to order your certificate if you want that. So the certificate of trust, okay, is otherwise a presentation that I did trying out a few methods of probating, going through this process of probating, investing the deed of my strawman property over to me. Again, I was a bit wet behind the ears, but I did some great research breaking down all the acts and statutes here in the UK and the history surrounding this trust, okay, that otherwise can be pretty much concluded right here under the UCC, the US code 1321, okay, trust funds, that's basically where it's located, which is why you have to work for America in order to get this done. But I believe, such as what Bill Turner has proven in New Zealand, that you can also get this process done and appeased through your domestic court system if, okay, you are doing the right procedures and steps, okay, and you're working with a judge who's very lenient in you proving that you know what you're doing, okay, and they'll end up helping you out. So I know Bill Turner's done this. I know there's other people who have done this domestically through their court system in regards to probating the estate of your straw man and actually declaring it legally dead, even though it was dead on arrival. But this whole process of then transitioning yourself as executor going forward and beneficiary, being able to receive all that is liquidated from the securities and the insurance policy that is otherwise held in your straw man name from your birth, it can be done domestically, I believe. Okay, but we're working on an international level with Puerto Rico, Treasury, which is the gatekeeper to one of the trust funds that would be housing the SETA KB Trust. Okay, we also got another really interesting case here, the Chair of St. Peter, the bankruptcy of Detroit. I won't say any more on that, but otherwise, again, proves a voice recording of the existence of this with the document too, which is really quite interesting. Okay, so then we have obviously Bill Turner presentation here as well that alludes to this kind of process of liquidating the estate, but domestically, that I chucked on there for people's benefit. But I wouldn't pay attention doing that process because obviously I couldn't prove that it worked because I was missing a few pieces of the puzzle that otherwise I've come into, since then. Then we have number 11, Uniform Commercial Codes, UCC. Very important module, again, to understand what has gone on with the debasing of the money. So the colorable law system that we've got, that is otherwise governing colorable contracts that are being contrived and settled through the colorable money, okay, the debt-based fiat currency money, okay, which is basically pulling everything under and into this D-based system of securities. Okay, securities have now replaced substances collateral for debt, and otherwise break down the ABCs of the UCC Article 1 through to 9, which you also have access to on my YouTube channel for free. So I feel like it's a very important thing to just get out there for those folks doing research, because it's like fundamental basic knowledge that, you know, all of us should really be taught at school with what is actually happening on this planet in regards to how this law system works, okay, and this whole economy works, world of commerce, right? So we have 14, this is another very important module, setting up the 508c1a, okay, which obviously later on ties in with what I showed you with how you can use it with the UBOT, the LLCs, if we got any, and the 501c3 as well, okay, so it's all part of the asset protection estate planning kind of setup, all right, which is important, which I just skipped quite a lot of modules there, didn't realize. So you have that. Then obviously prior to that, you've got the business registration, banking, money and investments, actually show how I was able to keep my PayPal business account open by sending in my declaration that I used to unlock the power of the diplomatic IDs to the Vatican. And they actually managed to open up my account. So I've actually got a PayPal business account, but it's existing in the private without any legal identifiers with the tax identification numbers that they were requiring in order for me to keep that account open by simply sending in my declaration. Okay, and I've talk about a few other things that are quite privy that, you know, might be useful for those to know when going forward, when you have amassed your wealth and knowing what to do with that wealth, okay, and investing, etc. So you've got the asset protection, estate planning, again, good introduction to trust law, setting up common law private trusts. Okay, you got Passing the Buck by Gwen Wyckoff, which is probably the single best private individual who've been administering these estates for billionaires and these elites for quite a long time. That's otherwise the co-author to Passing the Buck volumes, okay, 1 and 2. That I've also got a PDF that you can get your hands on, which one of the volumes I think is worth $600. Just goes to show you, you know, how valuable her knowledge is. That otherwise ties in with this whole process of what I showed you, okay, under what we're setting up in this course with the LLCs, UBOT, 501c3s, 508c1as, okay, but she otherwise digs even deeper into the finer details of how all of these different LLCs and UBOTs, holding companies, all work together within these family structures and the pitfalls to look out for in order to avoid being, you know, considered or construed as being an associational partnership, which can bring you into the public jurisdiction where you can be taxed and fined, which is something you don't want to do. That's otherwise very, very beneficial to know, okay? So important. Like I said, this is all part of laying the foundations. Like people focus too much on the money and not on the structure of actually building your base first, then the frame, then the structure, and then you can start with your decoration. Actually, you know, using the analogy of building a house, you've got to start your foundation, your structure, and then obviously after that, you can start focusing on the intricacies of, you know, filling it with the valuable goods of the decorations, the furniture, etc., the artwork, you know, you name it. So this is basically laying your foundation. These entities and having this knowledge of knowing how to operate these entities is like laying your foundation. Okay, then later on, also like learning about the UCC codes as well, trust law, UCC codes, tax law, accounting practices. Okay, and the UCC will give you good knowledge of banking and securities, so it's kind of like a 2-in-1. And then obviously you've got the tax law, recoupments, how to do your tax returns, access your unified tax credits. Okay, then the accounting side of things as well all ties in order for you to be able to learn how to operate and access your unlimited exemption, limited credits, which these entities will be set up to receive and allow you to be able to do that. Okay, off the back of obviously having them set up with your bonds and ticking all the boxes of you otherwise being able to operate in commerce internationally. We got also Carlton Weiss. He's provided some, you know, useful materials too in regards to acting as trustee, which is what this kind of whole sovereignty redemption series with the manuals also talks about. Okay, going forward from your 9(8) foreign grantor trust, which again is just helping to build that foundational knowledge, intermediary level knowledge of knowing what to do when you have everything set up, okay, with all these entities. And then we got otherwise the 1099 process. This is again when I was very wet behind the ears, but otherwise shows you for those folks who are international to get your TIN number, ITIN number, which is important because that's what we're going to use to dissolve and liquidate the estate in America when sending in the pack to Puerto Rico, again, because they hold the they're the gatekeepers to the special fund, okay, which is linked to the SETI KB Trust. And so the rest of that is otherwise very rudimentary, but again, a good introduction to these forms that otherwise will be covered later in the Advanced Treasury Redemption Process pack, okay, which is pretty much probably 70% of the way there. In the future, what will be added is me going through the forms of liquidating the estate, the final closure of this estate and the return. From there, it's going to be a matter of setting up the secure transactions with what you need in regards to the negative checks, the check software, being able to draft up your own checks, bills, drafts, and notes, and learning how to manage that on the 1099 forms. Okay, once everything is cured with your bonds, indemnity bond, your set-off bonds, and you've got confirmation of that from the Treasury, you got your 98 foreign grantor trust pack sent in with your investment bond too, which you should receive dividends from as well, which should be quite significant. In order to help fund any businesses or investments you want to make going forwards, in order to help, whatever it is you want to do in life, your sole purpose. Okay, and then from there, it's just a matter of learning a bit more about the tax codes, controlling your securities, dealing with the DTC, okay, and applying for all the necessary numbers and going through all the necessary gates and gatekeepers in order to, put yourself in that position where you can now start becoming a private banker and accessing government grants, unified tax credits, doing your recoupments, issuing securities, and controlling them and enforcing them. Again, learning how to administer that, all within your estate planning, asset protection plan and structure that you have set up. Okay, everyone's situation is unique. Okay, with the different businesses and ideas that they want to, generate and obviously put forward on this planet. But this is what I mean. This whole course is going to provide you all of the answers in order for you to be able to sit down, really go through this process, take your time, invest in yourself, and be patient, let your spirit grow into it. It's quite amazing, this journey, all right? And then put you in a position where you can actually start getting some of this stuff done. Okay, that's why it's very, very exciting. I'm looking forward to, cracking the code with the secure transactions, actually putting this to work, binding the Treasury as my drawee once my account is charged up, okay, being indemnified, having the knowledge as a Surety jurist now, kind of 4 years into this journey, okay, and being able to actually order them to act as my drawee in order to discharge my debt, okay, make secure transactions, access my unified tax credits, and then obviously do my recoupments, and then just generate my own wealth, okay, so I'm unlimited. And the ability of being unlimited is to bring everything back to zero, okay, so that pretty much sums everything up. If you have any more questions, then feel free to reach out to me via email, okay, which is alex@agmulodich.com. Okay, I'm pretty sure I've covered everything I need to cover. I've got, in the meantime, my YouTube channel has got some really good videos that you guys can work through. Likewise, under resources, okay, over at my website, which you can go through, also have a pretty cool little wealth receiving program as well that I'm a part of, that I joined off the back of reading Mary Elizabeth Croft's book, which got me into this whole straw man gnosis to begin with, which is alternative, but it does exist in the private. Again, the remedy is in the private, knowing how to stay in the private, and it is tax exempt, okay, doing everything above water, where you're kind of giving in order to receive, okay, and tapping into that law of attraction, that, law of abundance, once in a lifetime gift in order to receive an infinite amount in the future based on your own efforts going forward as like an entrepreneur. So it kind of attracts those who can think for themselves. And it's just good, maybe something to do on the side, that if people decide to join at all three levels, you can learn more about by visiting this page on the Sovereignty and Wealth. Now they get 50% off of the Sovereignty and Law course too, if it's all made as an upfront payment. Okay, and you've got more information on that, obviously, here on my website, that you can go through in your own time. Also have the old presentations that this one will obviously now be replacing, but you can otherwise go back and look at, which does have some good trivia and research breaking down, what is actually happening, with some examples. Okay, they can go through in your own time. Okay, so that pretty much concludes this presentation, guys. Like I said before, thank you so much for coming, dropping by and spending your time and listening to this presentation. I hope it has appeased and answered a lot of your questions, in other words, shown, some of the stuff that I found out has been educational. I know it's a bit off the cuff, okay, but at this stage in the journey, it's kind of good to be able to explain this, on your own 2 feet without any real prompts as it were. And it is a very complicated subject. It's fascinating. I love talking about this, love researching this. I love sharing this as well. And it's my vision to get every single person who's on this path who really, really wants to kind of break free from the system and otherwise, you know, work together as international creditors, having all this infrastructure in place and all this knowledge to be able to access our wealth, to work together in co-harmony with this planet and everyone else to be the change we want to see, and otherwise be these future leaders, okay, that other people will rely on in order to help reset things down here and kick off these sodomites, these Pharisees, Sadducees, okay, Canaanites, all these Saturn worshippers, and bring back heaven on earth, basically. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for your time. Take care of yourselves. As always, study hard. I hope you found this very helpful, and obviously appreciate your support if you do decide to come on board and join the Sovereignty Masterclass. You'll have access to the Telegram group, okay, where there's over about 100 of us now, all sharing our successes, our journey, answering questions. I'm available to answer questions as well by email whenever I'm free. But I do encourage people to go through the course, see it through to the end, take your questions down, because a lot of them can be answered in later presentations, and otherwise in the comments listed below the videos as well, from other people who came before asking questions that you probably were or are going to want to know answers to, so you'll be able to find out the answer yourself. But you do have access to a free 30-minute consultation once you go through the course as well, where I can obviously sit down and ask any of those questions that you really couldn't find an answer to. Okay, so much love. Thank you for watching, and hopefully see you on the inside. All right, until then, take care, stay safe, and as always, stay sovereign. Thank you.